The amount of misunderstanding found in discussions surrounding Valve, HTC, and SteamVR is kind of unacceptable. As the 1-year anniversary of the Vive's consumer release moves farther away, the fact that some issues have yet to be addressed is surprising, and kinda difficult to point whose fault. And no, I'm not talking about the much discussed $800 display that requires at least an $800 PC to enjoy argument, although that is a problem.
If you took the existing VR systems and made them 80% cheaper, there's still not a huge market.
You see, from an outsider's perspective, the HTC and Valve partnership seems to have caused more problems in the community than good for the VR ecosystem as a whole, and whether HTC, Valve, or both are to blame doesn't matter. These are deep-seated problems. I do want to preface a few things. All of the major problems have to do with getting the hardware into the hands of those that should have it, and everything I am detailing may not even be Valve's fault. The timetable, the major development on the hardware side itself, and the distribution was all up to HTC. I realized that Valve was developing the entire standard that HTC created it off of. I was around and creating videos back at the GDC when Valve announced their partnership with HTC to create the Vive. Now, this was marketed around the history Valve had with VR development, showing off every major prototype Valve's engineers created in the lead up to what most believed to be the Vive. The issue is, the Vive is HTC's design, only following standards put in place by Valve. The SteamVR standard, which includes Lighthouse, is Valve's, and HTC was the first company to announce a headset that followed this standard. Anyone paying attention to the VR scene 2 years ago remembers Chet Falasak's many talks detailing the development process of the prototype, including one that used phone panels they bought off of eBay attached to a head-mounted display, and all of the homegrown work done by Valve to get to that point. But as for the Vive, the headset shown off was a mid-development prototype created by HTC. However, this separation between companies was not made clear. Even only a few months ago, professional journalists at the February Valve roundtables were asking Valve about a possible Vive 2.
Introducing something like a new pair of controllers or a follow-up to like a Vive 2 or something like that.
And understandably, most assume SteamVR's future still lies with this current HTC partnership. And HTC was no help at all, using Valve's community poll to drive buzz, from HTC's CEO announcing the then non-existent Half-Life VR game, to using the Portal IP and shell in official marketing material even though no real Portal game had existed, to again the CEO teasing a quote very, very big technological breakthrough, only for the reveal a week later to be a camera mounted on the front of the display. And this technological breakthrough camera was included on a new model called the Vive Pre. At CES 2016, HTC announces the HTC Vive Pre, a second-generation dev kit with 7,000 made to be passed out to developers. This kit was announced to be a stepping stone, with the feedback received used to shape the future consumer model. What actually happened was HTC dropped the Pre name and released this dev kit pretty much unchanged. And following the announcement of the Oculus Rift's public release in Q1 2016, HTC wanted to create a competitive market, even if the product was not completely refined. The result was HTC releasing essentially a dev kit to the public, with the majority of the average consumers assuming that this was a Valve product, where HTC was only really used for manufacturing. As time moves forward, HTC has announced the Vive Tracker, Viveport software, and the deluxe audio head strap. And Valve continues to refine SteamVR, Lighthouse, and create a new controller, the Knuckles prototype. Announced on June 5th, there will be a large update to the SteamVR tracking, including a move to what is called SteamVR Tracking 2.0, a refined base station allowing for more than 2 trackers at a time, using less power, making less noise, and being more reliable than the previous generation. And this is on top of the Knuckles prototype, first discussed at last year's Dev Days and later during the February roundtables, where Newell states,
what we can do now is we can be designing hardware at the same time that we're designing software. Like, this is something that Miyamoto has always had, right? He's had the ability to think about what the input devices and the design of systems should be like while he's trying to design games. Our sense is that that's going to allow us to actually build much better entertainment experiences for people.
Both pieces of hardware are completely Valve made, and upon release will likely change the face of the VR standard. So the unanswered question looms over the community. How will consumers get get a hold of this hardware. With the announcement of many new VR systems compatible with the Steam VR standard and Valve's focus on LG's showing, the rift between HTC and Valve seems to widen. Will these new pieces of tech be incorporated into future Steam VR compatible hardware? Or will Valve offer the new hardware through their own channels, similar to that of the Steam controller and Steam Link? Seeing how Valve's 3 VR titles are built alongside Knuckles, they will likely be sold on Steam along with the software. However, as for the trackers, if a better piece of equipment is available, I would hope it could be easily obtainable for any consumer, not just those currently in the market for a new HMD. Hardware sold directly through Steam is incredible, by the way, as it's subject to the same sales as any other Steam product, along with Steam Wallet cash being used in the transaction, so anyone could sell knives and gloves to get the stuff. The HTC Vive, although listed on Steam and being on Steam kind of causing some of these problems, is not sold through Steam, instead through HTC's official channels, where shipping is $50. And while on the topic of price, HTC controls the pricing of their own products. However, due to HTC's original cling to Valve's name, most average consumers assume the $130 price tag for a single controller is somehow Valve's fault. I can kind of justify the HMD cost. It's completely new tech with very little precedent. However, $40 for some cables, $20 for a head strap, and $130 for a single controller is completely crazy. Here's the good news. The ecosystem is ever changing, and fast at that. New companies are jumping onto the bandwagon every few months, and it seems like it can only go up from here. Yeah, unfortunately, due to either Valve's hands-off nature to literally everything, or HTC's possible greed, the open VR markets may have been set back a little bit. Because the marketplace is quickly adding new competitors, the price will go down, especially since HTC will not be the only Steam VR competition. They have kept their $800 price tag because although they may have rushed their hardware out the door to compete with Oculus, they might not feel they need to truly compete with Oculus anymore, due to the absolute difference in system. Oculus is a walled garden with motion controls and room scale kind of having support many months after the initial release. But now we have LG, Acer, Microsoft, and Lenovo entering the market, and it will quickly become a battleground. And as the PC hardware required also goes down in price, we may see an ecosystem where the entire cost of VR admission may be halved in the next year or two. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Tyler McVicker. This is Valve News Network. Have a good day. Adios.
Gotta go fast. Gotta go faster, 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 faster. It's Sonic X.